In the meantime, we have some experts here in the studio with us to give us some context to what we're seeing tonight, the real story behind some of the numbers.
Yeah, we got Lenny Steinhorn from American University and Dr. Kanisha Grant from Howard University. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. So it is early, friends, and you've already warned us that, you know, there may be surprises or other things that are coming in, but, you know, we're just getting started. What are you thinking? What are you seeing so far?
We're just getting started. I want to see more patience.
Okay.
The calls and talking about whether a state went or not with a very small percentage of votes reported kind of stresses me out a little bit, because I don't know that the average person is able to take that information in and understand that it will change over time. But I am interested to see how the story unfolds, and I think more importantly, how quickly it unfolds.
Can you explain that first really quickly to folks who might be watching now and they're seeing these numbers come in, they don't understand the percentage? It doesn't factor everything in when you're looking at that percentage.
Right, so I'm from Florida, for example, and we were talking backstage about an abortion measure that's on the ballot there, as it is in 9 other states. And the question I had was, where is this information from? So I'm from Broward County. It's one of the more populous counties. If we had results and they were only from places that are smaller in population, then they would be a little bit more trustworthy as a way to understand what's happening across the whole state. And so when you see these numbers, you need to think about, where are these things happening, and are they happening in places where most of the people live? If they are, then it's easier to understand what's happening. It's easier to make predictions about what might happen in the future.
All right, Lenny, you've been watching some of these numbers so far. You've been digesting them. What do you make of what you're seeing?
It's going to be tight. I think the polls are actually accurate this time.
Really?
Yes.
Really? How did they get it right in your mind?
You know, they overcompensated for what they got wrong in 2016 and 2020. They found a way to count more of the Trump vote. So my guess, if I were to sort of project out, is that Harris might have a small lead on the popular vote nationwide, but that doesn't mean she will win the battleground states or enough electoral college votes to win. Now again, it's anyone's guess, because as you were just saying, it depends where these votes are coming from, okay? You could have high turnout places that haven't recorded enough votes yet to be able to make a difference in the percentages right now. But it's going to be tight. That's the bottom line. You got to look at Michigan, you got to look at Wisconsin, you got to look at North Carolina, obviously Georgia, and the big prize is Pennsylvania. Whoever wins Pennsylvania is going to be the next president of the United States.
Why Pennsylvania?
And they can't even count everything, right? Until all of the ballots are in, right? So we're looking at least a day or so out before we get any answers, really, right?
And that would be super generous. Like, that would be the world in a perfect scenario. But in their rules, they can't even touch those ballots that were mailed in until 7 o'clock today. And so we're talking about putting these things on a machine, hoping the machine opens them well, unfolding them, then putting them through scanners, and so on and so forth. And so if it is figured out by tomorrow, it will be because the margin is so wide, not because they finished counting these votes.
So why Pennsylvania? How did we end up at this point with that being the big prize here for this election?
So in American politics, to win the presidency, you need to win the electoral college vote. And that is the battleground state with the largest share of electoral college votes.
It's been that way, obviously, since the electoral college was the way it was. But I feel like, to Zoe's point, it's taken on some additional oomph this year, right? Usually we talk about any of the other ones, but that one appears to be the big prize.
Well, because it's a divided country, and if there are only 7 battleground states, the 19 electoral votes in Pennsylvania is going to make a big difference. If Kamala Harris can win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, she will be the president of the United States.
The so-called blue wall.
She does not have to keep, not have to win Georgia, as Joe Biden did in 2020. She does not have to win North Carolina or Arizona or Nevada. That's why Pennsylvania is so important. She can cobble it together if she loses Pennsylvania, let's say by winning North Carolina and Nevada, keeping Michigan and Wisconsin. So there are all sorts of combinations and permutations along the way. But Pennsylvania's those 19 electoral college votes, it's a lot easier if you win them all to be able to become president of the United States.
And what issues do you think have been driving voters to the polls? We've talked a lot about abortion. We obviously have wars taking place overseas right now. You're talking about democracy. There's a lot.
Right. I think all of those things are important. I think one of the things that we hear loud and clear on the Democratic side, and a little bit less loud and clear on the Republican side is this issue about reproductive freedom, reproductive choice. And the fact that this is on the ballot in 10 states signals that not only do people in the electorate think it's important, the political class thinks it's important, thinks it's a way to get people out to the polls. And so when I'm thinking about what's important, I'm thinking about that first, especially because we have a woman on the ballot in this instance, which kind of changes the way that that looks in the conversations that we can have about it. And so I think that is kind of the big thing. But of course, the economy, inflation is important, democracy is important, all of these things matter a bunch.
The border.
Liddy?
Yeah.
There's been this fascinating question for years. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Okay. So what's happened is that the Trump team, the Republicans, have been able to shape the narrative that we were actually better off 4 years ago than we were today. I don't think the Harris campaign effectively answered that, because 4 years ago we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Which we rarely talked about.
Rarely
this
talked
campaign
about.
season.
You know, hundreds of thousands plus more people died. We had supply chain issues. We had an economy crashing. And we also had January 6th, okay? So the better off 4 years ago has created this sort of Republican narrative that things were sort of glowing and good and the economy was really strong under Donald Trump. That was 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it was also good 8, 9 years ago under President Obama. But the bottom line is that this is an election about narrative. And insofar as the Republicans have been able to sort of define the narrative on the economy, that's been a real plus for them, which isn't to say that there aren't real affordability issues dealing with inflation, with housing costs, with interest rates, and all the rest of that. But when you look at all of the economies on this planet post-pandemic, there's one that's doing really well, and that's the United States of America.
So the campaign that wins the narrative takes the prize.
Messaging, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Lenny Steinhorn, Dr. Grant, we'll chat with you in just a moment. We have
sure
a lot to
will.
talk about tonight, okay?
I mean, we're going to
Buckle
be
in.
here all night, so yeah, a lot to get to for sure. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.